live WebEx sessions will be posted to the announcements section. Looking at our online anytime attendance, which is entirely optional, so it is my privilege that you are here on this day. We also want to make certain that we understand that since our live WebExes are recorded, that that's probably our best real-time source of information. If you don't want to have to go through kind of recycled content from other classes, that we have to keep adjusting your idea of due date and what it is that's happening. So we have somebody in the space to lecture to, then we'll make sure that we lecture for those class periods where we have assigned WebExes. And then of course, those videos will be posted to the announcements section. I want to just walk you around really quickly some important parts of our Canvas environment before we get into the concept of outlining for your first speech. And we understand entirely that you're a second start class, that this is the first time that some of us will have used a full sentence outline, which is a template that helps us to organize our thoughts. And so we have a grading rubric that is pretty, complimentary and empathetic to our first time out and doing these things, but we are going to learn the process together. So during the lecture, anytime that you have a question, a comment, a contribution, you're not interrupting, you're helping the lecture continue forward. So please do unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I know I talk very quickly. You'll get used to it. It's on purpose. But again, if you have any questions or comments, everything shuts down to make sure that your knowledge is taken care of. So go ahead and unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I have to announce that I'm transitioning to sharing just in case you have anyone that's using a screen reader, an interpreter, or a different device. So I know that you'll get tired of me saying, let me share my screen really quickly, but we're sharing the screen really quickly. Firstly, we've landed on your activity schedule, and I just want to back out of it really quickly so you can see we're in the files section of Canvas. We've clicked on our activity schedule, and that's where you see every single thing that is due on the date that it's due. As this is an online anytime course, you are not required whatsoever to send me an email and say, hey, I missed class. What did we do during that time? Because everybody can miss class, so you're not held to an attendance standard, firstly. And then also what we did is very likely on this here activity schedule. So it shows which part of the text that we're engaged with. And remember, this is a first day inclusive access course, meaning that your textbook, you just need to click on the left tab, First Day Inclusive Access, and you'll see our Pocket Guide to Public Speaking has been paired with the class. Y'all, please speak up if there is anyone that's had trouble accessing the textbook or seeing it, because it should be paired correctly. And I know at least one or two of your classmates that has sent me an email has indeed accessed the book. So please do let me know if you're having trouble getting it calibrated correctly or finding it. Let me know when we take right now or when we take a quick pause between screens. And we're looking at what we're supposed to be doing on each day. On this previous Wednesday, we had a WebEx from 9:30 to 11. And I'm not sure that it was attended at all, but we will take a quick look at that, and we'll get you a video to the announcement section to handle it, especially coming into our first quiz, which is due today by 11:59 p.m. Some students have already taken the quiz. You'll notice on our activity schedule, we have what we're doing this particular week, what our goals are as we're hosting this as a 2-day-a-week engagement, what we're doing on Monday, what we're doing on Wednesday, and then on the far right column, which portions of the textbook that you will engage. But also you'll notice that there are lots of things in the file section as well. So handouts that have been created for you to take the most pertinent to your quiz and assignment information from the textbook, extracting that and compiling it in handout form. For example, when we're looking at, let's say, chapter 6 down here for audience analysis, you are welcome to and encouraged to read the entire textbook chapter, of course, to watch the video or to attend the live lecture that we give on the subject, but also there is a handout that very expressly and explicitly goes through every tenet that you're required to know for audience analysis. So it really is trying to be a package for you of layers, so you can attend a lecture, watch a video, look at the handout and review that, and also get into the textbook as well. So we have all types of information concerning whatever the particular subject is for that class period or for that week. Our first quiz, that is today by 11:59 p.m., concerns the concept of really how our class is managed, and also a very cursory or brief bit about outlining. because the full sentence outline, as aforementioned, is the tool or the instrument that you'll use to construct all of your speeches in this class. So you'll use this outline that to plug in your own content and information to be able to deliver it using this outline in a linear way that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that prioritizes main points, also known as lead sentences, and supporting materials, has transitions, previews your topic for the audience, and recaps it for the audience. So we're just using the template really to organize the thoughts and all the good stuff that you already have in your head. We're just putting it into a template to kind of get some, organization about it that unifies everyone's pattern, really. Maybe you've known a person, that person might be me, and we just met. Maybe you've known a person that's kind of all over the place. The person's supposed to be telling you their story about what happened at work. And so they talked about the traffic on the way to work and then what they were wearing. And then they got to work and they spilled their coffee. And then they went back to what happened at the house before they got to work. And that's why they had to get the coffee at work. And then they talked about how, oh boy, called them. And then they wanted to talk about the traffic again. And you're like, I'm trying to keep up, but it's all over the place. And so what we try to do with the template is just package it in a way that we can understand together and know by routine where we are in the speech. So just by listening to our classmates, we can say, oh, this is our classmates' is thematic statement, or we're in a transition right now, or this must be the second main point because he said he was going to talk about the history of tacos, where to get them, and his taco recipe. And so, yeah, I think we're on the taco trucks right now. So unless he owns a taco truck, we must be on main point B. So we'll be able to infer and kind of understand things by using this template. The information about the template that is going to be on your quiz that is due by 11:59 p.m. today is just going to concern the parts of the full sentence outline that we will see when we flip to that template in the file section momentarily. So we definitely will cover the things during this class period that you'll need to know for the quiz, but you would have been able to already in our section just go to the file section, see what the quiz is about since it's labeled that it's on class structure and speech outlining. Go to the file section, look at the outline template, the content guide, and the example, and gain some information therein. Also, the outlining chapter of your textbook that corresponds with it, so chapters 4 and 5 would be helpful. Really, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all of them. So we can just look at really part 1 of our textbook, and that will tell you a lot about outlining as well. As far as the class structure portion of the quiz, and mind you that the quiz is, I believe, 6 multiple choice questions. So it's designed to be taken within about 10 minutes for our students, unless they have applied for accommodations. Usually takes about 5 or 6 minutes to take the quiz. I believe you may have 15 minutes in your window to take it. But it's a very, very short quiz, always multiple choice. Every single quiz and test in this class will be. And it's designed to take on a computer or a more stable device. But if the struggle has happened to you, plenty of students take it on their phones, so they take their quizzes really quick during work breaks or whatever it is that has to happen. The information for how our class is managed is best found in the welcome packet that some of you have already read because I have received emails that have let me know that. So if you have not already, please do read through the entirety of our welcome packet. There could be a benefit for you in doing so. And also our crash course PowerPoint. So we learn things such as, how are we going to complete speeches in this class? Well, you're in an online anytime section, so your job is to, by 11:59 p.m. on the due date, which herein for us it's March 7th, you will submit to the assignment portal. So you'll submit to the assignment portal your full sentence outline template, which is completed, meaning that you will download the template, type directly into it, and you are going to type every single word that you plan on saying exactly as you plan on saying those words. I'll get to your question in one second. I've seen it. Thank you so much. And I'll get there. I'm just going to complete this one thought. So you're going to type out every single thing that you plan on saying exactly as you plan on saying those things, as if one of our classmates could grab your outline and give a near identical speech. This means that you're not going to type in your speech about your trip to the Grand Canyon. I'll tell them about my trip to the Grand Canyon, or tell them how the canyon was formed, or canyon facts. But instead, you will type, my trip to the Grand Canyon was fantastic. I can't wait to tell y'all what I did when I was there. So you're going to type it in the first person present as you are going to speak it to our audience. You're going to save that template as a Word document or a PDF, never ever attempting to share a Google Doc. And then you're going to upload that to the informative assignment portal, which we'll see in just a bit. Then you are going to record your speech where we can see you visibly. So we need to see you on camera for the entirety for this first speech, it's 3 to 5 minutes in time range. And we need to hear you clearly. Make sure that the video is public or it's able to be viewed by all that are enrolled in our class. And you will do this by uploading that video to a discussion section that is titled Upload Informative Speeches Here. This means that the outline that you submit is entirely private. Only I and you will see what is supposed to be said on your outline. However, because it's a public speaking class, we have to have a public. And this means you don't have to have an official audience in your house or wherever you're delivering the speech, but instead, we as your classmates are the audience. And so you must put your speech in the designated discussion section so we can click on it and we can watch it. You also on the cool get extra credit for making some comments on your classmates' speeches in that same discussion section. So the procedure is twofold to submit our speeches. Make sure that we have it again, and I'm going to give you the guns, meaning that I'm telling you this concerns you, this is important, write this down. And so the question in the chat that I'm about to address is what to study for the quiz, and I'm telling you right now what to study for the quiz. For quiz 1 that's coming up, remember, it is about our class structure and our speech outline. Let me take a really quick break, and I apologize. Are y'all able to see the activity schedule on the screen? Because it says what quiz 1 is on and what we're looking at. So can y'all see that? Can y'all see the activity schedule? You said yes? Somebody wants twice? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Alrighty, so quiz 1 is on class structuring and speech outlining. And so we were just talking a little bit about both at the same time, really. So we're talking about outlining, that we have an outline that has a template that organizes all of the stuff that we want to say. And that template and the resources that explain it are all located in the files section of Canvas. And you can also look at the entire first part, and it's labeled that of our textbook. That's an exclusive access textbook. So it means that every single person, unless you actually went through a procedure to opt out of the textbook, every single person that is enrolled in the class should have access to it by clicking on the left navigation tab in Canvas that says First Day Inclusive Access Text or Resources, or however the student view of it is labeled. So you can look at part 1, which is a section of our textbook that discusses outlining. You can also look in the file section for the outline template itself, the outline content guide, and then there are several examples of a completed outline as well that are in the file section. So all of those things can be studied for the outlining portion of the quiz. And remember, again, it's 6 questions or fewer. And then as far as the class structure, we are really just doing just a quick test for information to make sure that you understand how to submit your speeches. And that is just what we discussed immediately previous to this conversation, that you're going to, because you're an online anytime section, by 11:59 p.m. on the due date, submit to the informative assignment portal your full sentence outline template as a Word document or a PDF. And then you're going to bop over to a designated discussion section that is labeled Upload Informative Speeches Here. And you're going to make certain that your video is visible and we can hear you and see you at the same time delivering your speech for 3 to 5 minutes for this first one. And of course, in the welcome packet and crash course PowerPoint, also just looking at our syllabus. Those are all pieces of information that can help us with the class structuring portion. So our crash course PowerPoint, our welcome packet, and our syllabus help us out with the class structuring portion. Also, you could just hear everything that I just said or run this lecture back, and everything that you need to know for the quiz is pretty much mentioned already. Questions or comments about anything that we discussed about discovering where our activity schedule is in the file section, how to read it, what's going to be on our first quiz, the quiz procedure, the contents, anything y'all want to talk about at all. Questions or comments, please unmute yourself or put in the chat. Let me do the discount double check on the chat, make sure everything's answered. Okay, so hopefully we got it. So we got what the quiz is covering, class structuring and outlining, and we know that we connect with all of the stuff that says outline in the file section, the first part of our textbook, and then also our crash course PowerPoint, our welcome packet, and syllabus. And I'll show you now. Let's get out of the activity schedule for a bit and just go into the file section. So I'm announcing again what it is that we're supposed to be looking at, and if you don't see it, if my screen is acting weird or something, then please do say, Professor Rayner, hey, we're looking at a cat video or something crazy instead of what you're supposed to be looking at. So we're supposed to be in the file section right here of Canvas, and we see our activity schedule up top. And then our crash course PowerPoint is here. That really gets into our first theoretical explanation. So things such as knowing what a schema is, the perception process, the human communication process. And these are things that we can get some supplementary videos posted to the announcement section on, but it's pretty much a read through on your own. You're welcome to read through that. And then we see all the way at the bottom our welcome packet that gets us into that classroom management situation, that shows us how to turn things in, what our makeup policy is, all that stuff that really is already in our syllabus, but it's just compartmentalized into one PowerPoint. So we only have 2 PowerPoints for the whole class. We are not going to do PowerPoints every single class period, or you have to read through them. It's only 2 that are stoic. They're just standing and sitting there, so you can just look at them anytime that you like. The crash course PowerPoint and the welcome packet both center really classroom management stuff and also basic communication theory. I'm moving the cursor over to the first day inclusive access course material. So when you click on this on the left navigation, we should be able to get into our textbook, and it may ask you if this is the first time that you're doing it. So I can't do it for the first time again. So apologies that it's not, I can't show you that part of the process. This is already there. But just understand that when you click on it, you may have to register your name, or have some things going on. But if it pops up just like this, you click Launch Courseware, ask for the ebook, and then your textbook should be right there. Now this is going to bop us to a whole nother page, so we may not be able to see this one as well, but we just want to know that it exists. Okay, so we can access the textbook that way, and if you're having trouble doing that, it could be more of a information technology issue, but we'll try to get out of here a little bit early today. So if anyone is having trouble, then you can ask some questions, or we can try to see what's going on, so why it is that you can't access it. Getting back to the file section, we just covered where to find your activity schedule, your crash course PowerPoint, and your welcome packet, which center our classroom management, what we're supposed to be doing each day, what each quiz is on, all your assignments, and their due dates. We can also find this really on our home page. So when we're on our Canvas homepage, you should see the running calendar that says, we have, a speech due on the 7th, a quiz due on the 9th, spring break is on this day, blah, blah, blah. So you should be able to see your calendar feed of what it is that's due and coming up. And please check the activity schedule for our WebExes, because I have so many courses. Sometimes the WebEx doesn't pop up in your feed until right that same morning or the evening before. So what I do for this class especially, is just pull up the activity schedule on my phone, screenshot it right quick, and then plug in those dates so I can set myself an alarm that says, hey, your great, fantastic Second Start class is beginning in a couple of minutes. And so you know what it is that's coming up, and that you have the ability to attend a live WebEx. You'll also notice in the file section other handouts that we were discussing, such as audience analysis, and you also have your review sheets already for both your midterm and your final examination. The assignments in this class are your informative speech, your special occasion speech, where informative is just telling us something or providing information. Special occasion has a pretense or a premise that we're actually inside an event that's really happening, and you're giving a speech at this event. It will run 90 seconds to 2 minutes long. This means to us that you can accept the Grammy Award for Best New Artist as yourself, or as Billie Eyelash, as my daughter calls her, or whatever you want to do, or whoever, you want to be in that moment. So this could be at your Nana's birthday, at your niece's quince. You could be at the Pulitzer ceremony for a great poem that you wrote, whatever you want to do, you imagine the event and then you're giving a speech within the event. And I guess we're just not cool enough to attend, so we're watching it in streaming. Then we have our persuasive speech, and that one is 4 to 6 minutes long. And you will need to have 2 academic sources for this one. You don't have to have any references or citations for the previous 2 speeches, but the persuasive is the big one. And for this, you will need to know what we know about APA formatting, which is the American Psychological Association's format for citations and references. And it just tells us how to cite a source or how to avoid plagiarization, meaning using someone else's or some other entity's intellectual property as your own without crediting that person or organization for sourcing that property. This means if you say something such as, give me liberty or give me death, and someone's in the class and they say, wow, that was dope and profound. She just dropped jewels. That's crazy, B. I'm going to write this down and say this to somebody else soon. Well, if you don't say where you got that quote, that's not your quote at all, that it's John Adams' quote or, whichever, slaver founder it was, that is a really big deal. Like, you have to be able to attribute this quote or this piece of information, this percentage, whatever it is that you've drawn from someone else's intellectual property. It's totally fine to say it. You just also have to say to whom it belongs. And we will type those things in our outline and on a reference page as well. So we will learn APA format together. And there is also a tutorial and several resources located here in the file section and also in the announcement section as well. So we have our 3 major speeches as far as assignments are concerned: our informative speech, our special occasion speech, and our persuasive speech. And each one corresponds to a section of the textbook and is supported by the file section handouts and the announcement videos and information as well. So remember, everything is pretty much layered. Then we also have, as mentioned, a midterm and a final exam. Each one will contain around 25 multiple choice questions. And for the midterm, it's going to feel like a mashup of the first half of the class quizzes, as you only have 5 quizzes throughout our semester. So it's going to take the first 2 quizzes, really, 2 or 3 quizzes, and some information that comes mostly from the crash course PowerPoint. And we'll study for that via live WebEx before the midterm examination, and then we'll do the same for the final examination. The final exam is cumulative, meaning that it handles things all the way from the first day of class to the latter part of class, but it will be a lot heavier on those latter part of the class activities. So it's not going to be so much from the very beginning. It'll be mostly those last couple of chapters of class that we'll deal with for the final exam. And again, the review sheets are already posted here to the file section for our A+ students that want to get started, and then we'll have a live lecture for those things. So we've laid out our assignments. We've got our 3 speeches. You have 5 quizzes that total 25% of your grade, and you have your midterm examination, your final examination, and you will have already engaged with 1 out of your 2 discussions. So the discussions are just you engaging with your classmates, and unfortunately you do have to do kind of the corny post your own response and then respond to 2 of your classmates. All right, so we want to make sure that we do that in the discussion section. If you have questions or comments about any of the resources that we learned about in the file section or the activities that correspond to each one of these things, anyone have anything at all? Right? And as we go on to our homepage, look at, firstly, you'll see a running list of the latest announcements. So when we click on announcements itself, we can see several things that are already posted for us. So we have our textbook information, the APA format info that we just discussed, the concept of what to do for our informative speech. So how we select a topic, which the answer is anything that you want to, as long as you're providing information. Videos on outlining itself, on keeping an open mind, on engaging rhetoric and positive discourse. So some of the things that are on your activity schedule that you're requested to view or to engage with, those things are already posted here to the announcements. And then remember, each live lecture that is recorded will also be positioned into the announcements as well. We've already learned how to access our textbook. And then when we go back to the home page, we will see, as I mentioned, the calendar and the weights for each one of our assignments below. Okay, so we see our assignments that we just discussed and which percentage of the course they encapsulate. And then we have what's due and what's happening for our class. Same stuff that's listed on the activity schedule is on our running calendar on our homepage. And then when we click on assignments on our left tab, then we can find every assignment in class. So all of our quizzes and how to launch them. So when you're taking your quiz today by 11:59 p.m., you can either click on the left tab quizzes directly, or you can click on assignments and it'll still get you here to quizzes. And then we see the assignment portals for each one of our speeches, our midterm, and our final examination, our discussions as well. So everything is, hopefully, it's designed for you to be pretty user friendly. Then you just click on assignments and all of your stuff is there. So when we click on the informative speech portal here, where I have an edit button, you'll have a submit button, and we just know that your speech, well, I'll make sure that I'll clean this language up because it says by start of class on the due date, but yours, since you're an online anytime, to be more clear, is by 11:59 p.m. So your speech will be done by 11:59 p.m. On its due date, and we're going to upload a Word document or a PDF that's created with our full sentence outline template, the same template that we will use throughout our semester. And the speech evaluation form is what is used to grade and critique your speech. And in the announcement section, there is a link to the Learning Web that shows that speech evaluation form if you want to take a look at it. And I thought we had it here, but it's not. Okay, apologies. I'll try to get that, or I will get that to the file section as well, so you don't have to go through so many clicks. But the speech evaluation form is pretty straightforward. We will look in just a minute at the contents of the full sentence outline, and you'll notice it's just about a one-to-one situation. Whereas you see, you have a thematic statement on your full sentence outline template. And then on the speech evaluation form, it will say, was the thematic statement complete? If the answer is yes, you get 5 points. If it's no, you lose 5 points. Credibility statement. Did the student establish credibility? If you did, you get 5 points. If you didn't, you lose 5 points. So it's pretty much a one-to-one point system for all of the values in the full sentence outline, and then also additional points for delivery. Okay, so making certain that you're looking at your notes if you'd like to, but that you engage the camera as your audience, so you are not just reading for the whole entire time, that you're not doing any distracting mannerisms, that you're not cursing at us during the speech or any of those things. So you're welcome to look at the speech evaluation form, and I'll get it to the file section as well, but it is currently available in the announcement section and the announcement that shares the Learning Web links. As we pull up the outline and look at the outlining information that we see here, do we have any questions or comments? Anyone have anything at all? Okay, notice in the file section, we have 4 items in a row that start with the word outline. So we have our outline content guide, which is really just an electronic or print version of what I will lecture this morning and what you see on the outlining video that's in the announcement section, that really just goes through each part of the full sentence outline. We're on it right now. So the question is, where is the template? So we're looking at the 4 items that begin with the word outline, and we're getting to the template at the 3rd out of the 4. So the content guide is the exact template, gives the template in its entirety. We'll just go ahead and click on it since you had a question. And it shows what you're supposed to put for each one of these values. Okay, so it says for your title, you choose it. For your general purpose, you're going to engage 2 words. To inform, which is a verb that describes that you are completing information to deliver to the class. Your specific purposes formula is that same general purpose plus the subject of your speech. So you will type something such as, to inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon. And then your thematic statement, which is essentially a preview, will contain your entire specific purpose plus each main point. And main points are lead sentences, also known as subtopics, that you will deliver. So your thematic statement can say something such as, I will inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon, including the financial portion of going to the Grand Canyon, what my family did while we were there, and some cool attractions that we visited on the way back. That would be 3 main points that you're going to engage. So this content guide is using the exact template and really just describes in print form what it is that you were to plug in of your own content and sentences in each one of these areas. You'll also have some tips at the bottom that reiterate things such as what was mentioned previously, that you are typing in the first person with full sentences. So you're not going to type a title such as Cost of Grand Canyon Trip, or I will tell them how much my trip to the Grand Canyon costs. But instead, you will type, my trip to the Grand Canyon cost me about $2,000 all inclusive. All right, so you're going to type it exactly as you would plan on saying it. This is the content guide that engages the actual template. Then we have an example of what an A looks like. So an example that a real student has submitted that meets the time range of your speech. So this means that the template, it doesn't matter how many pages it is. I know it's still trying to come up, so we'll see if it wants to do the right thing for us here. But the example is using the same full sentence outline template. It is using full sentences to describe every single thing that the student planned on saying, exactly as she said it. And it blasted this one, I think, about 4 minutes and 37 seconds. So it was closer to the 5-minute mark. Again, notice that it doesn't matter how many pages it is. So this outline comes in at about 3 pages, but it really just depends on how quickly you speak. So the average rate of speech that we learn in our Crash Course PowerPoint is about 135 words per minute. But some of us speak so much more slowly than that, that if you were to record yourself, rehearse giving a speech that took 3 to 5 minutes long, you may engage far fewer words than 135 per minute. And there's some people like myself that talk really, really quickly that could get up to 5 pages in an outline and still be able to squish it between 3 and 5 minutes. The important part is that you stay within the time range, not that it's a certain amount of pages. So you're welcome to look at this example and see how every piece of the full sentence outline is manifest. And please understand, this is our official outline for each one of our speeches. It's a tool, a formula, as if we are in a math class with a certain paper grid. It is not an option at all for you to go to the internet and find another outline or engage or flip the template at all. It must stay exactly as is. So the template must stay in the positionality that it is delivered to you. And it is done so in the file section where it says outline template right here. And so 2020 was the last time that it was updated by the National Communication Association, and that's our current version that is here. As a professional speechwriter, this is the exact template that I use to create speeches for my clients, and this is something that is also exhibited around page 9 of your textbook. And I say around page 9 because it just depends on the version that you have. We should all have the 6th edition, but depending upon the publisher, the pagination is a little bit different. And you could have a hard copy or you could have the electronic book. So it's somewhere in that first chapter, and it's around page 9 that you'll see the template that is exhibited. But this template right here, this one that we're looking at right now, you can click on that in the file section, click this download button up here. The Word document will pop up. You may type directly into it, save it, and upload it to the informative assignment portal. And then you'll do the same thing for your special occasion speech and the same thing for your persuasive. So this outlines the law and it allows you to type your own words directly into it. And then you, of course, will say during your speech only the words that you yourself have typed. This means that you're not going to say, when we get to the 3 major parts of the speech, you're not going to say, Roman number 1, introduction. Hi, it's your girl Martha. Attention. May I have your attention, please? Credibility statement. I know all the things. Instead, it's supposed to flow and be vernacular. And you would say, hey, y'all, it's Martha. I don't know about you, but this is the Fridayest Wednesday I've ever experienced. Are y'all ready for the weekend? I definitely am too. I'm researching astronomy and I'm also an astrology girl. I've got crystals and tarot cards and all sorts of cool stuff. And I did some research about what you can expect for your horoscope this weekend. Today, I'm going to inform you about signs and placements. First, we're going to talk about your birth chart. Then we're going to talk about predictions and expectations. And lastly, we'll discuss how a horoscope doesn't have to be a horoscope in your life. So So your introduction is just saying what you yourself want to say and what you yourself want to type, and it is not that you're going to say the titles of the full sentence outline. However, those titles have to stay there and they have to stay in that same order. Let me go to the chat really quickly. And y'all, while I'm reading the chat, you're welcome to ask more questions or anything. So Salma, hopefully we got our answer that we know we're in the informative template, and it's every speech is template. It's the exact same template for all the speeches, and it's located in the file section. All right, and it says, where can we submit the speech? I'm not sure if you were on the call. We went over the place where you submit it for the informative outline or for any of the outlines to their respective assignment portals. And then what we did not cover, apologies, is where to submit it in the discussion section. So maybe that's what the question is centering. So we can go over that in just a second. All right, so as far as where to submit the speech, we're going to submit the outline herein. After we save it as a PDF or a Word document, we will submit that to the assignment portal for each respective speech. So for the informative, we will submit it clicking assignments. Hopefully y'all are following along or you can see it on the screen. Please tell me if you cannot. And we just did this, so you're gonna click on informative speech, and that's where your outline is going to go. Now for your recording itself, okay, so good question. For the recording, you're gonna hit discussions on the left-hand side, and then notice that there is a discussion that is titled upload informative speeches here. So it could not be any clearer at all. It says upload informative speeches here. This is where you upload your speech. And then there's one, of course, respectively for your special occasion speech and also for your persuasive speech. When you click upload informative speeches here, you're going to reply to this discussion, and it reminds you, of course, that you have to submit your outline to the assignment portal and that the speech has to be 3 to 5 minutes. We are going to hit reply, and when we are replying, you can have already saved your speech a certain way and upload it or attach it, or if you're like Super Freestyle Friday, you can record it directly into this space if you want to. So it's totally up to you. We have a couple of ways to make sure that our speech is correct and it's all right, but I want to give you a couple of warnings as well. And then apologies if we got on a different space. We will get back to outlining in just a bit. All right, so inside of our discussion reply, you're going to see the tab that says record or upload media, and it looks like a play sign and a music sign. And when you click this, record or upload media, if you have saved your speech to your device, whether it's your phone or your computer or a tablet, then you can simply, if you're on that same machine, click on it. It'll give you a list of files, and then you decide. So if you click or drag it here, then it'll ask you which file that you want to use, and then you just attach it therein. We're backing out of the shared screen just for a second. All right, no problem. But I'm still going to continue with you really quickly on how it is that we're going to get this up. So give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry, but every file in the city is now thinking that it's their turn. All right, it's turn. So let's go ahead and share the screen again, and thank you for your patience. So we're still on a discussion reply herein, and hopefully you can see that. And we just learned that we're going to click record or upload, and then you can choose your file and upload it that way. Or again, if you are just really cold and you've got the ability to do it in one take, if you're one take Jake, and you're going to deliver your speech, you can hit record and it will actually begin a recording for you. So it can say record or upload media. And then on the second portion here, you see record, and it'll help you to stop, start, do all that stuff. I don't want to throw the matrix off by hitting that right now because I just had to back out of it for another reason, but you can hit record and record directly into it. The other way that you can make sure your speech achieves the discussion section is by doing it as an old school attachment. So you can attach it, choose your file, and then all the difference is between uploading it directly and attaching it is that if you upload it, it's embedded in a reply. So when we click on it as your classmates, then we can just see the reply, hit play, and see your speech. But if you attach it instead, then we'll have to go through kind of the extra step of clicking on it, waiting for it to download to our machine, and then watch it. So that's kind of like a thing that some students don't like to do, to attach it, because then the person that is watching it has that video on their machine, and that's like, you don't really want them to be in your business like that for later. So attach it if you must, but most students like to simply upload it or record it directly in. Also, what you can do, because students sometimes have trouble with their devices, you can record your speech, post it to YouTube if you'd like, and then drop the YouTube link inside of a reply. But if you do it that way, and I consider it to be kind of like, going around the corner to cross the street, but if you do it that way, where you save the speech to your device, then upload it to YouTube, and then drop that YouTube link in the replies, you have to make certain that your speech is set a certain way in YouTube. And that means that it has to be public or unlisted, but never private, because if it's private, then we'll need your permission to watch it, and then it technically won't be turned in on time. So that's kind of a slick thing that students have done, not in my section necessarily, but in the past, where they post something, they post a video, even it could be like 10 seconds worth of nothing, but it's set to private. So they kind of buy themselves some time when when somebody has to email and say, hey, it's private, we can't see it. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me replace it with another video. So you just got kind of like an extended time for that thing, and we don't play those games. So it has to be set to public. It has to be able to be viewed the second that it hits the reply to make sure that it's there. Now, I want to warn you that it takes a long time, especially when there are due dates that are bumping up against each other. So you have a class full of 24 students. I have 7 classes, and due dates are very similar. So understand that if your speech is due at 11:59 p.m., let's say we don't have to let's say, it really is due on the 7th of March, then when we get to uploading at 11:41 p.m., there are so many people that are on the server that are trying to do that at the same time that everything is going super slow. I'm an old person. If you email me at 11:50 and say, Miss, I'm trying so hard to upload my video. I don't know what's going on, and it says that it's going to do this, so I'm just going to email it to you. Nope, the procedure is it must be in the discussion section by 11:59 p.m. The portal will be open tomorrow. The discussion section is open right now while we're talking. You have all this time, all these weeks to go ahead and upload that thing. So there's no reason really for us to wait until 20 minutes before the thing is due and then panic because it says it's going to take 25 minutes to do it. And I'm not information technology anyways, and I'm not going to be able to help, access your computer or operationalize it remotely to get that thing to go quickly. So let's make certain that we try way before time, way before the due date, if at all possible, to get our stuff in. Also, you'll notice in the discussion section area, there is a video practice space, and it mentions really just the same thing that I mentioned to you. So we know that when everyone's trying to use the technology together, it can be really slow. So you can record yourself just 10 seconds of something in this video practice space and then reply to it, try to upload your video, see about how long it takes, because it's not just the server, it's also your own personal device that slows the process or has it done quickly based on its memory and its ability to communicate with whatever the signal is. All right, so it's not on this end most often, but even if it is, we just want to make sure that you get your full credit by getting everything in on time. So you're welcome to approach the video practice space, and then of course you upload each one of your speeches to its respective assignment portal for the outline and for its discussion. Now the question in the chat is what we have to do for the video, okay? And I'm just getting a little worried because I know that we talked about this, or we absolutely mentioned it already, so I just want to make sure that I'm not confusing you with the class before, because I had 8 o'clock as well. But for our speech, you have to have a recorded video so we can see you on camera for the entirety of the speech, which is 3 to 5 minutes long for this first one. And we should also hear you. So it's both audio and visual recording. So you're going to engage your camera, and we're also going to hear you. So we need to see your face on camera the entirety of the speech, and we need to hear the words that are coming out of your face for the whole 3 to 5 minutes. So both audio and visual, no problem. Apologies if I did not mention that earlier. I absolutely intended to. All right, others, questions or comments? Anyone have anything at all about how to submit the speech before we get back to the outline? About how to submit the outline itself, or how to post your audio and visual recording to the discussion section? Anyone have anything? All right, thank you. And if you do, y'all are doing right by putting in the chat or unmuting yourself if you have the opportunity. All right, so getting back to the outline, we're clicking on our outline template, and I'm going to give you the guns, meaning that I'm going to tell you that this or that is important, and you have the guns for really the entirety of the outline. Firstly, you understand that you're able to select any topic that you like as long as the purpose, meaning that your goal, is informative. No problem. Let me get a question in the chat. Both are due by 11:59 p.m. on the due date. So you could, in theory, submit your outline 2 days before, but not be ready to submit your video until 11 p.m. on the due date, and that would be totally fine. So they don't have to be sent or uploaded within like 5 minutes of each other, but they're both due on the same due date. So your speech is due on March 7th by 11:59 p.m. And that means that both elements, your outline and also your video, just have to be in by 11:59 p.m. on that day. And it doesn't matter which one is sent first or if there's a gap of days or hours between them, as long as when I look at midnight of all who has submitted what, that your both elements are in there by 11:59 p.m. Okay, so hopefully that answers it. All right, thanks, no problem. Alrighty, now into the template. Remember, you're selecting any topic that you like as long as you're simply providing information. This means for this speech that you're not giving us a speech that's going to toast someone or eulogize someone or introduce them at an award ceremony, because that's the special occasion speech. And you're also not going to attempt to influence the attitudes, beliefs, values, or behaviors of your audience, meaning telling us that we should learn to change our own oil in our car, or that we should become vegan, or that we should understand climate change is real. We're not doing any of that yet. We'll do that for the persuasive speech. This one is just a cool story, bro. You can teach us how to do something. You could tell us about some part of your life, your favorite things, a television show that you watch, your major, your job, your pet ferret, anything that you want to talk about, as long as you're just telling us about it. But as the official speech type with the National Communication Association is informative, we need to keep that verb consistent. This means that for the above the fold material, which we'll learn about shortly, we need to see a version of the verb to inform all throughout the outline. We don't want to replace it with to tell or to present or to educate, but inform, to inform, meaning simply to provide facts or to provide public discourse or conversation. Please do, in your full sentence outline, when you're going to download this, type directly into it as a Word document and then save it. You're firstly going to type your name, your first and last name, as it appears on the roster. Then you're going to leave the designation that says speech outline template right there. That's the label of what the document is. All of this information, from typed name to thematic statement, is called the above the fold material. And that language, above the fold, is a throwback to newspaper culture, where above the fold you had the preview or the table of contents, or really the highlights of the headline that are listed above the actual newspaper that's folded, so at the top, at the masthead. Herein, this information that's above the fold is not ever spoken as part of your speech, but really is kind of a planning document. And you can even look on your textbook around page 49 when we have like a bubble map that shows how you organize your ideas. Let's say, for instance, you want to give a speech about money, and you're like, alrighty, I know what I want to talk about. I want to talk about money. Okay, what about money? Well, my job is to inform, so I can't like persuade people to get more money, but I can just tell them about money, and I can tell them about like how to get money, what we can spend it on, and how to save it. Okay, great. So you're organizing not only your main points that you want to speak about, but also in which order you will speak them. When it's something topical, such as money, we can think that maybe there's supposed to be a linear sort of order of operations. That firstly, we have to get money, then we have to save the money, and then we can spend the rest of it. So maybe your three main points your thematic statement, including your three main points, would be: today I will inform the class about money, including how to get it, how to save it, and what to spend it on. Great, that's three main points in order that makes sense. But then some things the order is already developed for you. For example, if you're going to teach us how to make lasagna, It wouldn't make any sense to say, here's what you serve with your lasagna as your first main point, then here is the cooking process, and then lastly, here are the ingredients. We definitely have to go ingredients, process, and then what to do with that boy when it's out the oven. So you have to go in a certain order that's logical, and you will develop that on your own based on your individual topic. This means that our above the fold material is that area that previews at this positionality. Really, for me, it previews for your professor what you plan on speaking about and the order that I can expect your speech to go in. One of my obligations as your instructional lead here is to hold on to your outline as you are giving the speech and see how faithfully you have executed what your intention to say was against what it is that you've actually delivered. Now, you have lucked out, young people, and made a wise choice if you have speech anxiety or a little bit worried about performing in front of a crowd, because I have 2 face-to-face classes, and those classes, and has happened traditionally since before, way before the pandemic and the days of the dinosaurs, where you have to actually stand in front of a group of people and give your speech not off of this outline, but on what you have transferred from your outline to your index cards, to make certain that you don't have a whole piece of paper in front of your face. And as you're standing at the lectern, you can kind of jog your memory through your index cards, look up at the audience, make sure we're alive. And then, of course, you can go back to your cards if you'd like. But understand the point isn't to memorize the speech, but to engage in what we call extemporaneous speaking, where again, your job is to have typed on your outline every single word you plan on saying, and then only say those words in your outline without ad-libbing or rambling or going off script, and saying those things really closely to what it is that you have prescribed. The most important part is that we maintain the correct order. And so this above the fold material solidifies that order. So we have our purposes that are stacked, that were previewed when we first got to the outline content guide, but we will continue them on. And we see in our thematic statement that we've imagined for our first couple of speeches in imaginary examples that we have today. I will inform the class about, and then your main points are listed, and they should stay in that same order throughout the outline. For example, if our thematic statement is, today I will inform my class about my trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it cost, what we did while we were at the Grand Canyon, and then cool attractions that my family visited on our way back from the Grand Canyon. If that's our thematic statement, then when we get to our thematic statement that we actually speak to the audience, that exact same language, the same main points in the same order need to be distributed to the audience. And then main point A needs to be a full sentence on how much it costs to go to the Grand Canyon. Main point B needs to be a full sentence on what we did at the Grand Canyon. And then main point C should be cool attractions that my family saw on the way back from the Grand Canyon, put, of course, in a full sentence exactly as you plan on saying it. And then when we get to the conclusion where it says review main points, we again are going to hear that we just heard about your trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it cost, what you did while you was there, and what your family saw as attractions on the way back. It seems super redundant because it is super redundant. Your job is to tell us what you're going to tell us, and then tell us what you told us, to make certain that the important details of your speech are kind of drilled into us in a certain way. Again, above the fold material, from typed name to thematic statement, is an organizing device, and it is not spoken. When I said that you lucked out because there are face-to-face classes that have to do this in real time, it is a value to you that you get to rehearse your speech as many times as you like. You get to record your speech as many times as you like. If you think your eyes are like mine and really big and weird, or your forehead is doing something, or your cat walks behind you and you didn't like that, or whatever it is, you can stop the recording, start it again, and record it until you consider it to be excellent. So it's not like a one-shot situation where you're standing in front of the group, and if you fumble your words or something happens that you just, have to feel badly about it, unfortunately. Even though it probably won't take away from your grade, it still doesn't feel like the cool thing to think that you know what you wanted to say, but you kind of messed up. In this environment, you can rehearse it as many times as you like. You can record it as many times as you like. But the more quickly that you establish this above the fold material, so you know the order in which you will present these values, the more quickly that you can get about the business of rehearsing it, recording it, and doing well. You're going to type your own name. You're going to title your speech anything that you like or nothing at all, because no one else will hear it or see it besides the two of us. Because again, remember, you're not saying any of this during your speech recording. Instead, you will begin speaking in the area when we get to introduction, which is your first Roman numeral. You will type out for your general purpose. Every single person in the class will have exactly the same general purpose for your informative speech: to inform. That's it and that's all, just and only and always 2 words: to inform, to discover your purpose. And then your specific purpose again combines that same general purpose plus the overarching subject of your speech: to inform the class about money, or to inform the class about horoscopes, or to inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon. And then you'll have your thematic statement, which again contains all of the elements of your specific purpose, plus each main point, also known as a subtopic, that you'll discuss in the order that you will discuss it throughout the entirety of your outline. Remember earlier I said, hey, have you met somebody that's kind of all over the place? They want to tell you about traffic and then work and then what happened at the house, and they keep going back and forth and it's all over the place. Remember that this helps us to solidify bricks of subjects that we will cover at a time and how we will transition through them throughout our outline. So make yourself a note, write this down, pay attention because this concerns you. I'm giving you the guns. For this first speech that is informative, your minimum number of main points is 2. You must have at least 2 main points. What we don't want to do is have a speech about the Grand Canyon that just throws everything into a pot that could possibly be about the Grand Canyon, and then the audience has to sort out which are just facts that you know. What did your family actually do? Is this a cost? Did you win money? What happened? We shouldn't have to sort it out. But instead, you sort it for us by labeling your subtopics. That firstly, we're going to talk about how much it costs. Then we're going to discuss what you did at the Grand Canyon. And lastly, we are going to talk about the cool attractions that your family saw on the way back. You have to have at least 2 such subtopics in order to engage in your speech. Although students like 3 because it feels kind of like a beginning, middle, and end. So 3 is totally fine. But you can have 2, you can have 3. If you talk super duper fast, you can have 4. But understand, please, in a 3 to 5 minute speech, if we did mechanize, let's say 3 main points, that due to our average rate of speech and how students usually communicate during their speeches, we can really comfortably go over 2 or maybe 3 main points in a 3 to 5 minute speech. And if we engaged 4 or 5, we would only be able to speak about each one of those subtopics for about 30 to 45 seconds. So we want to be conservative with the number of main points that we have. But please understand our minimum is 2. Questions or comments about anything that we have discussed about the unpronounced organizing portion of our outline, which is called the above the fold material and is highlighted herein. Questions or comments? Anyone have anything? And do put in the chat, and I hope I'm not missing anything that y'all put in the chat. So apologies if so. Okay, thank you. All right, and if you have any more, let us know. Now we get to the star of the show. Okay, so we get to the part of the outline that you are actually speaking. So again, we need to get clear on what your obligations are and your privileges. We understand that you have any topic that you like to speak on, you're welcome to do so, as long as the information that you're providing sticks with that purpose. Okay, so it's not persuading us to do something, or it's not trying to like be a comedy routine, but it's telling us something or providing us facts or information about something that's an experience in your own life, or maybe just a thing, such as a student told us there is a such thing as building your own computer. Great. Or these are wind turbines. Fantastic. Or I'm going to inform you about the crown jewels that the British Empire has access to and from where they stole them. Excellent. Okay, so we can learn about all these cool things. Roman numeral 1 indicates our introduction, and you will notice the 3 major parts of the speech, and this concerns you maybe for, I don't know, your quiz that is due by 11:59 p.m. The 3 major parts of the speech are indicated by Roman numerals. Roman numeral 1 is your introduction, Roman numeral 2 is your body, and Roman numeral 3 is your conclusion. Common sense should tell us that Roman numeral 2, the body, is perhaps the heaviest part of the speech, meaning that it contains all the content and is likely the longest, with the conclusion being the shortest part of the speech because it's really just a recap of information that's already been given. And when you're recapping, you're really just giving us that same purpose over again and those main points. So essentially, you're saying during the conclusion, Well, y'all, my time's almost up. Today I informed you about my trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much money we spent, what we did, and then stuff that we saw on our way home. Next time you're going on a vacation, holler at your girl. Thank you. So we're just really quickly, within 15 to 20 seconds, just recapping the main points that we discussed, but we're not going into each one of the details that was exacted in our support materials. Your time of 3 to 5 minutes begins when you say hi. For hi, my name is, Nika, or whatever, or Sama, or Autumn, or whatever your name is. And it ends when you say for thank you at the end of the speech. So your 3 to 5 minutes is from greeting your audience by saying your name, and then, of course, thanking us or giving an expression of gratitude, which is the most impactful way that you can close a speech, at the end. So in your 3 to 5 minutes, you're going to say, once again, only the words that you yourself have typed. So you're not going to say introduction, hi, my name is, but instead you're just going to say, hey, my name is. And this time, you don't have to put your government there. You don't have to put your roster name. It's whatever your name preference is. And some students even like to put their pronouns in the introduction. They'll say, hi, my name is Professor Rayner. My pronouns are she, her. And then they go on with their speech. You don't have to do it. It's not required whatsoever. But the part that is required is that you do say your preferred name to your audience. Alrighty, so we're trying to make a community. Make sure that you say your name next to introduction. Then you will see capital letters A, B, and C, where A is your attention getter, something that engages the audience, because we'll notice in our textbook in part 1 that we have about 15 to 20 seconds to really get our audience to lock into what we were saying before it starts to make its Chipotle order while it's watching the video, or think about if it's going to rain today or something else. We need to lock into that. You can do this with a joke, even if it's corny. I just flew in from San Antonio and boy, are my arms tired, which at least people will feel sorry for you. Or you can do this with a fun fact, a piece of trivia, just something generic, as we mentioned earlier. I'm certainly ready for the weekend. Aren't y'all ready for the weekend? So something that attempts to establish what we call rapport with our audience, meaning that we're trying to make a connection with it and let them know that this is a safe place for them to learn and that you're going to care about their welfare during this speech. So something that connects you to the audience within the first few seconds to hopefully get them to pay attention to your speech. Then capital letter B is your credibility statement. And I'm giving you the guns for this, so please write it down, understand it, ask any questions that you have about it. Your credibility statement is designed to respond to an unspoken but audience thought question of why we should believe you concerning this topic. Your credibility statement is a sentence, 1 or 2 sentences, as all of the sentences on your outline should be just 1 or 2 sentences per brick. We don't want to have an entire paragraph, or we'd write an essay like those, English people. You would just write a whole essay, but instead we're going to engage just 1 or 2 sentences for each one of these bricks. And your credibility statement brick is going to give your authority or demonstrate to the audience why it should believe you on whatever this topic is. It's important that we understand that we're not giving credibility to the topic itself, but to the speaker, his, her, or their self concerning the topic. Let's look at the difference. If we were to give a credibility statement to let the audience know that cancer is important, then we would say something such as, cancer is a facet, unfortunately, in so many American lives. Lung cancer is prevalent among smokers, but also people that don't smoke can get it too. We're not telling you that cancer is important. That's not our job in a credibility statement. But instead, our job is to say, I researched cancer after my aunt unfortunately came down with lung cancer. If we're talking about the Grand Canyon, we will say, I visited the Grand Canyon 4 times, and my latest trip was totally planned by me, financed, budgeted, and I even drove on the trip. If you're giving a credibility statement about horoscopes, then you're going to tell us, as we mentioned earlier, I'm an astronomy major. I also like astrology a whole lot, and I studied under this person who taught me the mystic art of the tarot, and this is what I learned from this person. Your credibility statement should always use what we call a self-referential pronoun, such as I, my, me, or mine. Something that talks about yourself as a speaker. How do you know this thing? If you're going to give us a speech about skydiving, if I'm an audience member, one of the first things that I want to know is, have you jumped out of a perfectly good plane, or is it something that you just learned about on YouTube, which is totally fine. You don't have to be the day expert even, or the 10-year expert, but just the 3 to 5 minute expert. I have plenty of students that say, I'm starting the DASH diet and this is just day 3. I'm kind of hungry. I don't know if it's going to work out, but this is what I know about it so far. Or I just barely learned this subject that's called barrel racing, which is this activity that happens at the rodeo. And I'm going to tell you what I know about it so far. You can tell us this has been your major your whole life. You work in this industry. You've been interested in this thing since 7th grade. Something that answers to the audience what your ethos is, or your authority to speak on this topic. That's what goes down in your credibility statement. And then to conclude the introduction, we see that same thematic statement that we had above the fold. So above the fold, we said, today I will inform the class about imaginarily my trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it cost, what we did there, and then cool stuff that we did on the way back. You can say that exact thing to the audience in the thematic statement inside of your introduction. So some students like to straight up copy and paste it. Just copy it from above the fold and plug it in that thematic statement. However, if you want to loosen up just a little bit in the one that you speak to us, you're welcome to do that. So instead of referring to the class as the class, you can say, today I will inform y'all about my trip to the Grand Canyon, or you, or even you can relax that verb and say, today we will discuss, we'll chop it up about, today we will holler at the concept of the Grand Canyon. We'll talk about my trip, what I did. As long as the main points are in the same order and they're all there complete, then you can relax during the thematic statement that you speak to the audience in the verb and also the pronoun with which you refer to the class. However, above the fold, I need to see that word inform 3 times in order for you to get full credit. To inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon. Today I will inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon, and then insert those main points. In the introduction that you speak, if it feels kind of weird for you to say, today I will inform the class about my trip to the Grand Canyon, if it feels kind of stuffy, it's perfectly fine for you to say, today we'll talk about my trip to the Grand Canyon. I'll tell you about blah, blah, and blah. Do you have any questions or comments about Roman numeral 1, which is the introduction? Anyone have anything at all? And if you do, put in the chat or unmute yourself, please. Alrighty, and then Roman numeral 2 is the body, and this one goes actually pretty quickly once we have our thematic statements established. Main point A will have, firstly, the body has nothing next to it. So the body is just going to sit here. You're not going to put anything next to it the way that you put hello, my name is next to the introduction. Instead, we will start with main point A, and you will type a full sentence exactly as you plan on pronouncing it that discusses whatever first main point that you put forth in your thematic statement. So if we're in a pretend speech about the Grand Canyon, main point A can say, affording a trip to the Grand Canyon is easier than you might think. And then you're going to discuss that main point. So say that exactly as you plan on, type it exactly as you plan on saying it. And then your supporting materials are sentences that fall underneath that serve to enhance, further elaborate, or discuss only what is in that main point. For example, if your entire speech is about your trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it costs, what you did at the Grand Canyon, and cool stuff that you did on the way back, under main point A, you can only talk about how much it costs. There should not be anything else that enters under that main point as a support material. Main point A is all about cost. Main point B is going to be selfishly and independently isolated, only about stuff that went down in the Grand Canyon. And then main point C will only be about what you did when you got, what y'all did on your way back. So main point A has to have support materials, and I'm giving you the guns because we have a minimum requirement for those as well. Remember, we said your minimum number of main points for the speech is 2. Well, supporting materials are indicated by Arabic numerals, and I don't know if you knew that they had a name, but these numbers that students will call normal or regular numbers are indicated as Arabic numerals. And Arabic numerals indicate your support materials, and you must have at least one support material per main point. You may have as many as you like thereafter, but at least one of them has to be enunciated during your speech. For example, let's say that you are teaching us how to make lasagna, and you are going to tell us the ingredients that are needed, the process, and then what you pair, let's say, wine or salad with the lasagna. Let's say that you're going through the speech and you notice, if we were in a real-time event, that when you rehearsed your speech, you were only supposed to be up to 4 minutes and 10 seconds, and you're already at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So I better wrap this up because I don't want to go over time. So instead of saying all 3 of the support materials that I had planned, I'm actually going to omit or decide not to speak at all the last 2 supporting materials for this thing, and instead just engage one. As long as you get one of those support materials out, you're not going to lose any points. You do lose points for omitting main points. This means if you said you're going to talk about your trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it cost, what you did at the canyon, and what y'all did on your way home, and you only got to those first 2, then you'll only be graded at half credit for anything that you did not get to. So if your speech stops at 5 minutes, anything that comes thereafter is only graded at half credit. So we want to make sure that we stay within our 3 to 5 minute time range for this first speech. Again, supporting materials are indicated by Arabic numerals, and your minimum number of support materials for each main point is 1. All right, you must have at least 1 support material per main point. And all of these are 1 or 2, as we mentioned, full sentences, and you will only pronounce what you yourself have typed. So you're not going to say main point A, my trip to the Grand Canyon cost X amount of dollars. Support material. Firstly, I had to buy gas. Support material 2. Then we had to have sandwiches for the trip. Support material 3. Then we had to have gas again, or whatever it is. All right, so make sure that you don't say those titles out loud, that you only contribute 1 or 2 sentences per brick, and you only say those things that you have typed per brick. Questions or comments about what we learned about in main point A? Anyone have anything at all? Alrighty, and notice that we're going to get to main point B and main point C if we have it, but firstly we have to engage what's called a transition or a signpost, and that's why our minimum number of main points is 2. So we learn how to operationalize what is essentially a bridge or a segue between topics. A transition is 1 or 2 sentences that have 2 jobs, okay? A sentence either in its entirety or 2 separate sentences that let the audience know we have now concluded the previous main point and we were opening up a new main point. We do this expressly and explicitly, meaning that we are going to name the previous main point that we just covered, and we're also going to name the main point that's coming up. This means that we're not going to say, now that you know all there is to know about that, let's move on to something else, because that's really generic and unnamed. But instead, we will say, now that you know how much my trip to the Grand Canyon cost, let's talk about some cool stuff that we did at the Grand Canyon. And then your main point B will start out, some of the stuff that we did at the Grand Canyon was free, but all of it was fun. And then that's your lead sentence for stuff that is about the Grand Canyon itself. So remember, a transition has to recap the previous main point and begin the next main point, or preview what's going to happen for the one that's impending or upcoming. They are not optional. They're worth 5 points. You will absolutely need to engage a transition. Students get confused sometimes, unfortunately, thinking that a transition can say, now that you know about how much the Grand Canyon trip cost, and then you go to main point B, let's talk about what I did at the Grand Canyon. That still should belong to the same transition. And then you develop a new sentence that talks about what you did at the Grand Canyon for main point B. You will always have 1 fewer transition as you will main points. If you have 3 main points, you'll have a transition between main points A and B and another one between B and C. All right, if you only have 2 main points, then you have 1 transition just between main point A and between main point B. And then, of course, your main point B will continue with a full sentence, 1 or 2, that says cool stuff. Here's some cool stuff that we did at the Grand Canyon. Support materials will list those cool things that you did at the Grand Canyon, also in full sentences. And then a transition that says, now that you know about the cool things that we did at the Grand Canyon, let's talk about how we found some attractions on the way home from the Grand Canyon. And then main point C will say, it is a long drive back from the Grand Canyon, but that means there's also a bunch of stuff to do on the way back from the Grand Canyon. So our main point C discusses exactly what we said it was going to discuss in our preview in our 2 above thematic statements. Do you have questions or comments about anything that we've done in the body before we get to a very short portion of the conclusion? Anyone have anything at all? Unmute yourself or put in the chat, please. Alrighty, and in the conclusion, notice that we have a parenthetical instruction that says your elements can be combined or reordered. And really what this means to us is that we have to do all of these things, these 4 elements that are listed in capital letters A through D, but it's okay if we even kind of freely type and squish them together because they're essentially, as mentioned earlier, just your thematic statement over again. When we signal the end is near, we're doing exactly that. We're telling the audience our time is almost up. Well, I better get out of here. My car is running and the canyon is calling my name again. My friends are waiting on me for my lasagna recipe and for me to tell them their horoscopes. So something that lets the audience know it's almost over, because when it's almost over, everybody pays better attention. We're in it. We understand a recap is coming up. So if we forgot something or we wanted to jog our memory about a question that we want to ask, then we know that that information is upcoming. So signal the end is near, let the audience know it's almost over. Then when we review the main points, that's the same as all of our main points that we have discussed in the duration of the speech. So we would be saying those same main points that we had in each one of our respective thematic statements over again. In real-time process, we would say something such as, well, y'all, my time is almost up. Today I told you about my trip to the Grand Canyon, including how much it cost, what we did at the canyon, and then cool stuff that we did on the way back. So those 3 main points, you're just going to reiterate those again, but not go into all of the support materials or the smaller details. When we reinforce the central idea, you can essentially just put an equal sign next to that, and that's your specific purpose in your brain, like in your thought process. Because when you reinforce the central idea, you're essentially just telling us what the point of the speech was. And herein, the point of the speech is to inform us about whatever it is that you're discussing. So you would say B and C are really just a deconstructed thematic statement and flipped. So that's why it introduces to us that we can combine or reorder some elements, because it's really just your thematic statement. When you reinforce a central idea, you're saying, today I informed you about, because that was what your job was, to inform us about your trip to the Grand Canyon. And then to review your main points are the same main points that are in your thematic statement. And as aforementioned, the most impactful way that we can close the speech is with an expression of gratitude by simply saying thank you or thank you for listening, and that's when your time stops. I would not move D anywhere. So whereas some students prefer to mix up the A, B, and C to say, today I informed you about my trip to the Grand Canyon, including blah, blah, and blah, and that means my time is up. Thank you. That's fine if you want to mix up A, B, and C in all sorts of ways, but since the time stops when you say thank you, and your most impactful way to close the speech is by saying thank you, don't say thank you until you're absolutely totally ready for the speech to conclude, especially because if we were in a face-to-face setting, thank you means clap now. So if you say, well, y'all, my time is almost up, I just want to thank you for, I'm a dolphin, I'm gonna start clapping immediately. As soon as you say thank you, I'm clapping, the speech time is done, that's it. So I'm not gonna hear the review of your main points or your central idea, and neither are your classmates. And it's not because it's not important to us and we don't want to hear it. We're just conditioned that thank you means the speech is done. It's over. It's the so be it, the amen of speeches. No other content should follow that. Questions or comments about the conclusion period, which is Roman numeral 3. Anyone have any questions about the conclusion or any other element of the full sentence outline that we have covered today, or absolutely any content that we've discussed on the creation and submission of your speeches, where to find information for today's quizzes, anything else that y'all want to talk about before we conclude and stop our recording? Anyone have anything at all? All right, thank you so much. I'm stopping our recording and I'm going to